Folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good. I had a guest on a couple months ago, and I absolutely love this dude. I could have kept this conversation going at the time because we just talked about our shared love of pop culture, streaming TV shows. I mean, it's all I do nowadays is just watch TV. And I had to get him back because I think he has kept up with this season of Summer House. He's watched Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. He has not started him just like that, and we'll find out why. But our guest today is an award-winning podcast host. In fact, I talked to him a week before he won Best Host at the AMBI Awards, which is huge. He's a podcast host, a producer, a storyteller. His critically acclaimed podcast, Wait For It, just had its second season. And I also love his Pop Culture Debate Club, where I just listened to the episode where he pitted Fiona Apple against Alanis Morissette. I mean, it's just diabolical what this man can do. Ronald Young Jr., welcome back to the show.
Hello, Ryan. You're so kind. I love you too, and thanks for having me back.
Dude, I mean, I can't, that Emmys award thing, I mean, did you expect to win Best Host?
Bro, no. Did you see who was in that category?
Yes. I mean, by the way, I was like, I'll never get him on this show again. Like, it was like I mean, that's where you're at that level.
Yeah, we're working on it, man. Like, I feel like that was a good feather in the cap. But for me, it was to have my name like mentioned, like with Jon Stewart, Sam Sanders, Glennon Doyle, like Rainn Wilson. It was just, that was enough. Honestly, that was one of those happy to be nominated, but to win.
Did you have a speech prepared, or were you like Mark Wahlberg in Boogie Nights when he's like, "Let's just keep rocking"?
You know, it's funny. I always think about, I imagine what I would say if I would win. And I typically have like two lines in my head. Like, if I win, this is where I would start. So I typically always know where I'm starting. I never know where the speech is going to end. And this one, I ended up talking about my mom, who passed last year. So, I mean, yeah. And actually every time I've been in public, I've been talking about my mom. So that felt like obvious it was going to come up, you know?
Yeah. I mean, which, by the way, the second season of Wait For It, involves your mom as well. And we had talked last time, I lost my mom we're coming up on 2 years in August, and there's not a day that goes by that I do not talk about my mom.
Yeah,
and I sometimes feel like, wow, people are really tired of hearing about my mom. And then some people will reach out and be like, no, I love when you talk about your mom.
Yeah. And Ryan, if you ever, dead serious, like whether we're recording or not, if you ever want to talk about your mom, you feel like people are tired of hearing about it, just give me a call, text me, whatever. I'll talk about mom like all day.
That's right. It's weird in the second year after losing somebody that was like the main person in your life.
Yeah.
It gets a little more insidious, I always call it. You know, it's like you think the first year and then you realize you were kind of walking around like a zombie, and I was able to do podcasting and keep up with that. But everything else I let fall by the wayside. And in fact, I gained like a massive amount of weight over these last couple of years while she was sick. And just recently I was like dealing with some health issues, and I just said, oh my God, I'm hearing her yell at me in my head. And I was like, I got to start taking better care of myself. But it's weird because you kind of like have these different versions of waking up from a disaster.
Yeah, no, you actually nailed it. And I actually appreciate you saying that, because I just got through a year. May 19th was a year. So like, it's good to know, because that whole first year I was like, I can't get out of this fog. Like, I've been working and still putting out stuff, but there was like just a constant sense of like, I would like do all my work. I would go downstairs. I would sit on the floor, not on the couch. I would sit on the floor in front of my couch, and I would play video games or watch TV or like scroll mindlessly and just sit there and be like, why do I feel? And it was like my mom's grief was ever present, but I couldn't connect it to like actually being in a pit of despair. So it's only been fairly recently that I feel like I'm not in a pit of despair. I'm still grieving, but I'm not in a pit of despair anymore, which feels a little bit better, but it's marginal, you know?
Yeah, no, it is. I think it's marginal. It's like small wins here and there, and then something could like bring you crashing down. Or some, like my mom, had incredibly bad music taste, and she loved Michael Bolton. So which by the way, I'm just cheeky. I like Michael Bolton, but like if I hear a Michael Bolton song, it like brings me back like that. Where you're like, oh, I gotta text mom, and then you're like, oh, she doesn't probably have text services in heaven,
Yeah, text her anyway, man. I send my mom memes on Instagram all the time. I send them all the time. I'm like, she would love this. I'm gonna send it. Who knows, by some magic that she has Instagram in heaven, and she's like, oh, that is funny, son. Thank you.
Well, I was talking about this in therapy. Do you ever feel like that? Like half of the reason I was like working so hard over these last couple of years to build this show was because I wanted her to see some version of success. And, I still am working just as hard, but sometimes it's not as sweet because I don't have her to immediately go, guess who I booked, or guess what I have, guess what I'm doing now. Do you have that at all?
It's funny. I recently had a breakup, and I feel like in the absence of my mom, my ex-girlfriend was the person who I like said everything to. Like, oh, you're not gonna believe this. Because she would be so excited for me. Sometimes I would tell my mom stuff, and I'd have to explain why it was exciting before she would be like, oh, that is exciting, which was fun. Yeah. And I do miss telling her things, but I had someone like that, and it was after the breakup that it kind of magnified the absence of my mother, because like she is the one who it'd be like 1A mom, 1B girlfriend. And that's when it was like, I knew these people were going to be happy for me no matter what. So
yeah,
that was tough, man. Like, because what the thing is, it's like, you think about the first phone call. Who was the first phone call? And you have that in your mind. Like, if I say that to you, who's your first phone call? You get good news, bad news, emergency. Who's the first phone call? And I think a lot of people probably have that in the front of their minds. But like when you're an unmarried person, when you're a single person, whatever, you're in a place where you're just like, who is that person? And when you suffer a big loss like we have, all of a sudden you're like, that list like just feels blurry for a while.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, she was like my pinned on text. You can like pin people to the top of your, and she was my pin. And recently I took the pin off, and it wasn't out of any sort of anger or any. Like, it was just that it was sometimes hard just to see immediately. Not that I'm ever trying to forget, because it's unforgettable, but it was just sometimes jarring at a moment when I would look at my phone and see text messages, and it was just a very weird thing. And I felt weird guilt about unpinning her from my text message.
I get it. I have her. If you look over my left shoulder, you can see a picture of her that sits right behind me. She's wearing a hat. She's at church. She looks like Cruella DeVille. But like I feel like I have stickers of her as well, which I when I travel, I put them up places, because the whole idea is like, I just want to be out in the wild and just see her in places. But I recognize that guilt to say, like, any of the stuff that I have that belongs from her, like even when I go to my parents' house and go to her office, there's stuff that's in there that, like, sure, we could throw away, but it's like, we're not ready to do that yet.
Yeah.
And you do feel some sense of guilt when you're just like, well, we're just going to throw this away. But we're like, well, what would mom have done? But the truth is, my mom was a cleaning fanatic. She'd be like, get in there, throw it all away. So like, I know for her, she's probably like, get in that office and throw it all away, Ronald.
She would be so disappointed in how many things I'm keeping of her around. This was, and I haven't told the audience this yet. I was talking to my dad this past week, and they were together 53 years. I mean, just like high school sweethearts.
Nice.
He went to Vietnam.
46, man. Yeah,
like it was, and whatever I'm going through, he's going through 50 times in a lot of ways, and that's the really interesting / scary journey that it's like watching the stock market, and you're like. I had a conversation with him last week, and he decided they had a small house in Gilbert, Arizona, and he called last week and he's like, I'm going to move. I can't be here anymore because she passed in the house. And I was like, yeah, whatever, whatever you think you need to do. And so we're getting him into an apartment, and we're going to rent out the house because we don't want to sell. I mean, I'm weird about selling the house. Because there's so many, I'm not ready to let that go yet, which is weird. But that's the thing, is that no matter how I'm doing, you also worry about your dad or your sister or your family member. Do you do that as well?
Yeah, man, every day. I'm worried about, like, I think me and my sister recently got into an argument and haven't been speaking. And it occurred to me that this was the first argument that we've had since my mother died. And it's normally my mother that would like be whispering to each of us to be like, hey, come back, talk to your sister. And I feel like right now we're kind of in a standoff to say like, who's going to talk first, which has been tough. But with my dad, it's like, my dad is saying things that are like the most romantic things I've ever heard. Like, he's saying stuff like, son, I really just don't think you're supposed to get married more than once. Like, I had my wife. And then he'll say stuff, they'll be like, people say I should move out of the house, and he says, but that's where she was. Why would I want to leave that house? That's where she was.
Well, so, no, and yes, it's so, I mean, you're right about the romantic things. Like, all of a sudden, it went from like I think a beautiful marriage and all that, but now it is like a romance to end all. You would have thought this was like the
Yes,
Titanic,
for
where
real.
he was just he took off his ring and then he was like, you know what? No, I'm going to put my ring back on. I'm always going to be married to your mom, and it's this
Yeah.
really Well, it's really sad, interesting. Some of it funny conversations I have with my dad about mom, and it's almost strengthened their marriage. In
Yes.
it's really wild. And I
Absolutely
always
get it.
joke. I mean, we're talking about TV, and we will get here in a second. But
Yeah.
he watches the shows that he watches are just wild to me. Like he loves Big Bang Theory. He'll like go through every episode. And I always joke, I'm like, you're able to actually watch them now without interruption. You had no idea because my mom would just interrupt every 30 seconds of a show. So now he's actually able to watch these shows for the first time.
Yeah. No, I feel like my dad. I think the thing about my dad is like I'll go there and he'll have the TV on, and he has it on his iPad. He'll just have it going. He charges it, and he'll have it going. I think the one thing that was most admirable about my parents is that when my mother was the TV watcher. My mother liked to pick. She was the one who picked what they were watching, and sometimes my dad would pick. But if he really wanted to watch a sports game or something, he knew he'd have to watch it in the other room. Ryan, do you not know this man would forego watching that stuff just because he wanted to sit in the room with my mom? And I feel like that's what makes it tough now because he's sitting in these places and he gets to pick what he watches on TV, but he doesn't really care what's on TV.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's just like, I'll watch Friday 100 times. You know what I mean?
But that's the other thing is that you're almost parenting your parent in some ways where you're like, listen, if you are going to see mom in the afterlife, if you really, right now, this is free time, man. This is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. As long as you don't get addicted to like cocaine or something or like fall in love with like an adult model, I think we're good. And by the way, no offense to adult models. Like if, but
I understand.
as long as that, like use this as free time and he is just not at that place of thinking that yet, Well,
there's two things though, and that might be important is one, my dad is still working. So he still has a job he goes to every day, which I think is good. It fills his day, keeps it structured. He was talking about retiring this year, like before my mom died. And I said to him, I remember after my mom died, I was like, Dad, I think you should just, if you're good and you're sharp and you want to be there, you can stay there as long as you want. That's one. Two, he's the assistant pastor of my church, which means that he has responsibilities to a community, which is like one of the things they say that kills you, that you live long lives if you're a part of a community. And he is, which is like going to stave off some parts of depression. He still has me and my sister that look in on him. So I feel like there's parts of it that the structure is like really saving my dad, but I know he's having rougher times sometimes that he doesn't always talk to me about it. I kind of just have to like suss it out, pop up on him and be like, hey man, hey, you depressed in here? What's going on? I'm depressed too. Let's be depressed together.
Yeah. I was like, therapy's okay. Like, hey, medicine's okay. Like there are things that like there's nothing to be ashamed of in any of this. He actually teaches Bible study to kids. And that has been I think a great thing for him over these last couple of years. But it is just, and I know a lot of listeners or anybody watching this, you probably have your own stories and you've been through something similar, even though each person's story is very unique. And if you haven't been there yet, you will be here one day. And that's the thing that I find interesting is like pre-death and post-death and what I thought it would be like and what the actuality is. And, it's just like, all I can say is that things are just a little less sweeter at times.
Yeah.
I mean,
and they don't teach you about death. Like they say the last lesson your parents teach you is how to die, right? And somebody's put that in perspective for me, and I was like, yeah, that's very true. There's a lot of things I know about the path to death because I watched my mom die. But the truth is, when I have kids, I want to be able to say to them, hey, I want to tell them like as early as 4 or 5, someday daddy's going to die. Like, and I want to be able to like instill that in them. So they're not, when it starts to happen, if there's things they want to say, if there's conversations they want to have, if there's things they want to do, let's do them now because daddy's going to die someday. And that's just not something, those aren't lessons that we're really teaching our children right now about death. We teach about everything else except death. Unless we're actually dying actively.
Well, and I also want to tell if I ever have kids, is that death with dignity, that's a myth. I'm going to go out screaming
100%.
And crying and really making everybody feel very bad that I am not feeling well. No, but my mom actually went through this with like a weird, like not a weird, but just a huge amount of dignity. I mean, huge amount. And that's why like the last couple of weeks when it got really bad, I was very frustrated in the sense of this person's worked so hard to do everything with dignity. And like when cancer's attacking your brain, it just became a completely different person than who she was. And I knew, I knew how frustrating in moments of clarity that would be for her. But I think that is true. Like I see so many things on reality TV where you see like even Khloe Kardashian this past year was like, we haven't told True that me and Tristan are not together. And I'm like, wait, so you're play acting? Like, I mean, come on, man. She's going to be okay.
True knows. She knows.
I mean, this can't be good.
No.
Well, and also you're talking about it on television on a reality show.
Yeah, like kids be knowing. And like the thing is, think about how many times we were going to school and getting information from other children whose parents were less like protective or whatever, that were just giving us information about things. I'm like, you think that's not happening to the Kardashian children? You think they're not being like, hey, your mommy and daddy are together? If they're sending them to a private or public school, someone already told them. Oh, I promise you.
Kim Kardashian did a podcast interview years ago where saying, well, are you worried about the Kanye situation in terms of your kids and them finding out information? And she like went on to say, well, we've got that school pretty much on lockdown, so we know exactly what's going. And I'm like, how? First off, maybe you do just financially are able to lock down any like kind of visit that these children have, but there's just no way. And if you want them to have some sort of normal life, part of normal life is finding out things away from your parents.
Correct. And the thing is, if I'm not mistaken, Northwest has like a Skibbity toilet chain or bought something for her mother. I was like, if she knows about Skibbity toilet, she definitely knows about Heil Hitler from her father. Like
she's highly online. She's highly online.
That's what I'm saying. So how do you think you blocking the internet? Like how? There's no way in the world you're keeping that away from her. You know what I mean?
I can't even imagine. Like the Kardashians are so far from aspirational, not even because of like physicality or standards of beauty, but just because I would never want to, like what the situations that they have created for themselves. It's like, this is the flip side of it you're dealing with now. And it's just going to get worse. I mean, we've seen Kanye be more and more unhinged over these I went to every Kanye tour. I went to Watch the Throne. I went to Yeezus. I went to everything. And to see where this is now, it is so weirdly sad to say goodbye to something you loved so much for a moment in time.
Listen, Ryan, this is the way I look at it. All right. So there's 5 albums of Kanye that I will support and defend until he dies. And it's his first 5. If you go college dropout, late registration, graduation, 808s and heartbreaks, my beautiful dark twisted fantasy. If you stop right there and you don't go to Yeezus, and I know you went to the Yeezus tour, but don't go to Yeezus because that's when things started to change. If you stay there, you can stay out of the anti-Semitism and all the weird stuff that he was doing. But I'm like, you're right, it is tough. I saw him at the Glow in the Dark tour after graduation. Do you know?
Oh my God!
Do you know who his oopers were?
Wait, was it John Legend and Kid Cudi, or who was it?
It was Kid Cudi was there. These were his openers: Lupe Fiasco, NERD featuring Pharrell, and Rihanna. Rihanna was an opener for Kanye in 2008. I was like, good God almighty, everything's changed. All of those people are headliners now. It was wild. And I miss those days. If we could just put Kanye in a time machine back to 2008, I think the world would be a better place. Like, I always bring him out in 2008.
Well, that's what I mean. I was talking about this earlier this week, is like pop culture sliding door moments, because I was using like Nick Lachey and Kim Kardashian. They went on one date before Kim Kardashian had Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Paris Hilton set them up on one date. And I was just like, what if we could go back in time and like, it was almost Back to the Future. You make sure that date is rocking. Would we have like escaped the Kanye Kim of it all? Would we like those little butterfly wings? Would we have turn pop culture on its face with that one moment?
I think she still would have divorced Nick Lachey at some point, but I think the trajectory of everything would be completely different.
Yeah,
it would be entirely different. Because look at like Nick Lachey is still like in the spotlight doing this, dead end job at Love is Blind and doing a terrible job at it. I might add.
Truly a terrible. Can we say it? Like I don't mind it, but it's not job. Good.
Yeah. No, not. But I mean, so he's still found a way into the spotlight. But I feel like I'm just curious what it looks like if you're with a Kardashian, especially at that time when they were like, I mean, I've started rewatching all of it, Keeping Up with the Kardashians from the beginning. I'm probably only about halfway through because you got to take breaks. And so like and I'm thinking about like they were relentless at that time, man. Anybody who got sucked up into their wake was going to be like they were going to be produced out somewhere doing something. So I'm interested to see how that would have played out.
Well, yeah, because I think Kris Jenner is of such a mind that she would have found a way. It's like Jurassic Park, life will find a way. The Kardashians will find a way. It just wouldn't have been at the scale because you wouldn't even have had Kylie and Timothy. If that one thing didn't happen, you would have had it in a whole different way. I didn't even plan on talking about this. So, really quickly to talk about like, telling your kids things when you're young and really educating them and teaching them for the realities of the world. You just watched the second season of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, and I think this is a very interesting concept to think about. These girls weren't taught a lot of things, or the things that they were taught were in the shadow of the Mormon religion, and you see a certain patriarchal society that is still very firmly in place. What were your thoughts on the second season, or what jumped out at you?
So I love this show. Let me just say that. Like, in terms of like,
it's well done.
It is. I mean, I don't know the in terms of the tension, especially I was raised in the church. So like in terms of the tension, I recognize some of the things that they say, like, should we be doing this? Or the church frowns on this, even though we're going to do it anyway, that type of thing. So I think they played up that theme. But I feel like for me, the biggest like things that I was thinking about the most, or the biggest plot line that I was thinking about the most was between Taylor and Demi, where I was just, this is actively a coup that Demi was trying to do.
For the heart of Mom Talk. For the heart and they're fighting for domination of Mom Talk.
Yes. And I'm like, Demi, you don't have anybody on your side. Like I was sitting there looking at what was happening and the way it split. Cause in the first they were like, yeah, Taylor kind of does some things. But when it came time to like vote against Taylor or like throw Taylor away, they were like, oh, nah, we're not doing that. Taylor bring the money. What does Demi bring?
And by the way, Demi really seriously miscalculated her importance. And I always think that's interesting. What I love about this show is that it does pay attention to its lore. Like it pays attention to the fact that the first season was semi-successful. They already were successful in terms of their TikTok. These ladies know how to brand like nobody's business. They say Mom Talk 80 times an episode, and I don't think that is encouraged. I think they just lock in like that. But then Demi was a fan favorite season 1. I really liked her, but I was never like, well, first off, I'm a grown man. I'm never like, she needs control of Mom Talk. But I never thought that. I just thought, oh, all of these women are uniquely fascinating. Even the ones that didn't get screen time as much in the first season, I've found their stories like Michaela's very interesting in the second season. But Demi just shot herself in the foot so badly. But I love that this kind of show is so self-aware that they will talk about the inner struggles of the show itself.
Yes, I think that to me is the difference between a good reality show and a great reality show, because I think great reality shows acknowledge their existence. They are meta in some way. Yes. I don't like watching shows where there's no talk about the cameras. I don't get to peek behind the curtain. I think that's unusual, to say the least. One thing about Demi, I would say, is when she started calling herself a fan favorite, I think that was the mistake, because even if she was, the fact that she said the words out loud to everyone, immediately my viewer brain was like, fan favorite. And I'm like, it's like I blanked on the first season completely. I was like, fan favorite? Demi, really? What are we talking about here?
Well, to me, once somebody calls themselves a fan favorite, you do not know what fan favorite means. Like you don't, that to me is never a fan. Like, and I don't know if you watched, I think you watched Salt Lake, Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, right? Have you?
I watched like half of season 1. I know enough.
Okay.
I know enough.
Well, so Heather Gay, I will say, Heather Gay started off as a fan favorite that season, and then I think she's another one that let it get to her head. Now, not as much as Demi, but also they're not as self-referential in terms of the meta nature of celebrity. But Heather Gay, I saw that, but also the fact that, and I know this has been talked about a lot, that all of this is coming out of Utah. Like this is like Detroit and Motown. Like this is, they're building them differently in Utah, and it seems to have hit a cultural moment that a lot of entertainment is coming out of this space based on strict religious law or rules.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, in a lot of ways, what they have accomplished in Utah, what the LDS Church has accomplished in Utah is kind of what like a lot of evangelicals have hoped to accomplish, like in other parts of the country. And so in some cases, like in terms of to be that intertwined with the government and culture of one place, like that means a lot. And I think the fact that we are seeing this and seeing these people interact with the church means that the church on some level says, hey, this isn't bad for us. This is probably good for us. Like it, on some level, because even if there's opposition, then that's still creating some sort of commerce for them. You know what I mean? And some sort of buzz, which is like good for the. It's good for everybody. A rising tide lifts all boats in Utah.
I mean, it's like a period like I think pre-1992 when Tom Cruise was really pushing Scientology before things got extremely weird, where people were like, oh, Scientology kind of seems like kind of cool. And I think I was talking to some of the Mormon wives I had on my show, and I was talking about this of like, has there been some reach out, because I feel like some partnering, because they are wanting to bring, or at least they're saying they're wanting to bring the church to a new generation. And they still are believing in the tenets of the faith. And I find that just a fascinating discussion, but also the fact that we're almost radicalizing these women through TV because they have to adhere to these strict rules. They're the breadwinners for their families, and they are still having to adhere to comments from men or their husbands or their stepdads or their fathers. And I think it's going to be really interesting in seasons to come to watch. And by the way, Taylor Frankie Paul, what makes her so fascinating, she seems like she's being ripped apart from the inside from all sides, and you see how messed she is.
Yeah, it's all anxiety, man. I remember for season 1, the reason why the reason why I like her so much is probably because I feel so much empathy for her, and I'm kind of rooting for her to get out of this place that she's in. But she just seems constantly like a ball of anxiety. Like it seems like every response that she has, even saying something like, y'all didn't say nothing on my post in public. I'm like, that is basically saying I want y'all's approval. You know what I mean? Like it means something for y'all to say something in front of people so that other people know that I'm important and I don't feel like a huge POS, like in her own words. You know what I mean? So I feel like I root for a lot, but it's weird to see like her family go after her on the Dakota thing. That was weird, Ryan.
Guys, that was in one of the first couple of episodes, and we saw like Dakota and her are at odds, her baby daddy, and they invite him over to like a picnic dinner or whatever, and it all turns into almost like a gang up on Taylor Frankie Paul, where her stepdad seems to slut shame her at some point and saying, well, what kind of woman goes over to a man's house to have sex? When I'm like, we are having the wrong conversation. By the way, this is a much... but it's like a similar conversation with Jesse Solomon with me of like, why are we pointing between Lexi and Sierra when Jesse Solomon is the conversation that we should be having? And it's much more dark and drastic on Mormon wives, because I'm like, this girl had to grow up in this.
Yeah. I feel like it's any time in which the conversation gets redirected like that, you can always get a good sense that there's like an agenda, or there's something else going on. Like, I don't know if the family maybe wants more screen time, or if they genuinely think that there's something wrong with Taylor.
The mom got a full facelift in between season 1 and season 2.
Yeah, man. And the weight drop was, I mean, it's like one of those things you can't not talk about. Like, I don't really like talking about people's bodies at all, but I was sitting there and I was like, oh my God, this is like night and day, lady. Like from season 1 to season 2, you're like, I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille.
The pictures just got smaller, whatever that. No, it was one of those things was so shocking where I was like, wait a sec, I remember her in the first season. There's no way that's her mom. And then it came up as the storyline that she did this. And I thought also that is the interesting after effects of being out in the public, of TV, and a lot of housewives have done this. I always use the example of Vicki Gunvalson. There was one season of Real Housewives of Orange County where her facelift didn't set right in time for filming. And she came onto the beach and everybody was like, whoa, Vicki, oh my God. And she's like, what? I didn't do anything. It was truly wild. So you mentioned the post of like, you didn't congratulate me on the red carpet.
Yep.
So Taylor Frankie Paul goes to the CMTs and she's a presenter, where I was like, that's kind of a big deal if you're into that type of music. And everybody, the Mom Talk gang, even though they were in group texts congratulating her, they did not publicly congratulate her. And this is kind of why I like Taylor Frankie Paul, is that she's so reactive and shoots from the hip, and she's not as thought out as Demi is trying to be, where she was like, no, I am pissed. I'm hurt. And I thought that was very interesting to be that kind of reactive and honest instead of keeping that close to the vest.
Yeah, and I also think like what we have to remember is that Mom Talk and this group of people, they're not just a group of friends. As a matter of fact, I would say their friendship is secondary to their primary motive, which is to promote themselves, to promote Mom Talk, to get brand deals. And any cracks that look like, oh, we're not supporting each other, either needs to be intentional or a way to continue to elevate Mom Talk, to create that tension, whatever. So I'm saying, like, if in the moment there's one of two things that can happen, either everybody comments on the post and they're like, wow, look at Mom Talk, look at Mom Talk working together in order to continue to rise all be the rising tide that lifts all boats, or none of you comment, and then Taylor now makes that into a storyline by saying like, hey, none of y'all commented publicly on the post, and like, well, we did it privately, and now that's a whole storyline in the show. So I'm like, as far as I'm concerned, this is what they're supposed to be doing. Like, whether she's angry and it's real that they're not doing it, I'm like, then that's your job. But if it's not real and it's all for a plot line, it still feels incredibly genius to me, just to like peek behind the curtain. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, should Mom Talk survive this? I mean, like, at some point the Beatles did have to break up, and they had to find their footing and go solo. I mean, that's the interesting thing, is that I sit there and think of it as like almost this union governed by some kind of government, and there's like there's laws and there's dues, and you realize, no, there's none of that. And it's not like they're out there like, well, we're coming together to feed the homeless. Like, what, you're actually going out there to try to get the best brand deals and provide for your family, which is very noble. But at the end of the day, I'm like, what are we fighting? What are we fighting for? And Whitney's come back and she wants to be back in Mom Talk. Nobody really seems to like her except for like one or two people. And she doesn't even seem to care. She's shameless. She's like, no, I just want to say I'm in Mom Talk.
Between her and Miranda, I think, is that her name? Taylor's
Miranda's
best friend?
the new one from this season that used to be a part of the Soft Swinging You Guys with Taylor, Frankie, Paul. She did not do it the first season. She was going through a divorce with the dude, and he shows up at the Halloween episode. And this dude,
great episode.
By the way, Ronald, did you catch that line of like, don't make fun of my podcast?
Oh yeah, when he said that, I was like, he was so direct about it. I'm like, did he like say something to somebody off camera? Like, I told y'all don't be talking about my podcast.
And I was like, I can't cheer this guy on, but I have similar thoughts about do not make fun of my podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Don't act like, you know what? I've had that too when people been like, Ronald's a podcaster. He's a guy with a mic. I was like, okay, first of all, wait for it is not like other podcasts, okay? I'm not just over here chatting, talking about females and saying we should go 50-50 on the bill. I'm not doing any of that toxic stuff, all right? Like, this is the most, gossiping about reality television is the most toxic thing that I do.
I'm an Ambies Award winner, damn it.
Exactly.
Please.
This is prestige.
Well, no, that's what all my friends will be like, I don't know what you're talking about, but it looks like you're having fun. And I was like, first off, I am not having fun. And second off, how dare you?
This is a job, sir.
This is a job. But yeah, so like, it is interesting that I find myself questioning what the purpose of Mom Talk is throughout the entire series, even though I root for all of these ladies individually, and it's almost like Lost, where you're like, we've got to go back to the island. I'm like, I don't even know what Mom Talk looks like when everybody's like together. Like, I didn't follow the initial lore on TikTok before it got turned into a reality show. So I don't know what the goals we're looking like, but I interviewed 4 of them and 3 of them were pregnant, like very pregnant at the time. And I'm like, wow, we're continuing to bring new life into this world. And you sometimes forget, even though it was right in my face, that these are all mothers. They all have kids running around.
Actual kids.
Yeah, because they're so involved in the business of this. And they're so committed. Like, they're fully committed. And it's like very sincere and not as detached as some of the shows on Bravo in terms of housewives.
Yeah, it's because they're so mom forward, and like mom is an identity that all of them have. There's no like in Housewives, it'll be like maybe 4 of them are moms, and maybe one of them doesn't have kids, or one of them only has like 1 kid, or one of them's maybe single. Like, there's always like different variations in the Housewives as they bring folks together, but it's not always that all of them are mothers. Whereas this one is very much like, all of us are mothers. Yes. So like, because that's the center of the show, it sometimes I forget like that they are actually raising children, like actual real children in real life. And then I wonder how much is happening off camera. How many nannies are there? Because there's been a few few times when I've seen like people in the house that aren't like the housewives. So I'm like, who are these people in the house? Are they helping y'all out? Are y'all hiring support? Like you should be with these brand deals and all this and husbands retiring and all that stuff. It should be like you should have plenty of help to raise these kids. And that's kind of always been my principle, Ryan, where I'm like, if I had $1 billion, let's have 100 kids. Who cares? Like somebody will take care of them. We'll be good.
Okay. Okay, Elon, calm down.
You know what I realized as I was saying it? I'm like, I'm Elon Musk now. That's not my intention.
No, I mean it's very interesting because like they're like mid-20s. They're like young women, and they all of a sudden are in charge of $1 million brand on top of human life that they are, creating, taking care of. And then always it's interesting because this positions the men, the dad talk, where they're trying to come together and commiserate about how hard it is to be a man. And I find this interesting because you have the Jen Affleck and Zach, and I find this relationship very interesting, where in the first episode he's supposed to like give her space, and he's like, nice place you got here, I could see myself settling in here real well. And I was like, and she kind of totally allows it. And then the next episode they're doing ketamine therapy together. They're doing ketamine.
Yeah, that's one relationship that I just do not trust Zach at all. Like he has a very punchable face. He's like every time he's opened his mouth, I've never.
And he knows it too. He knows it because I've seen him make a TikTok about like his punchable face.
Yes, he has to. Like dudes have to be square looking at him at the bar, be like, I'm gonna hit that guy. I don't even know what he did. Just walking in. But I feel like that's one part. I feel like there's a way that he talks to Jen that I do not appreciate whatsoever. I feel like Jen should remove herself from Utah and go to New York or LA or something. She would see that she is treated completely differently than when she is like subject to the whims of whoever this guy is, quasi E-list, half related or not to Ben Affleck that he is. But the second part is you mentioned something about dad talk. Like it's funny because if you've ever been in a relationship, especially if you've ever been in I'm speaking specifically about heterosexual relationships.
Yeah.
When all the women are friends, typically it's because they all chose to be friends or they have known each other for a long time. Then when you're a guy, you have no choice in the matter of what the relationships are. So sometimes the girls will all do something. They'll be like, why don't the guys do something? I'll be like, because I don't like those guys. I don't like those guys as individuals, and I certainly don't like them collectively. So I don't want to hang out with them. I'd rather hang out with my own. What you're doing is hanging out with your friends. What I also want to do is hang out with my friends, and you're not forcing me to be friends with guys that y'all all chose for yourselves, and you expect us all to mesh as a group, which is, I think that's what's happening with dad talk. I'm like, are y'all?
Well, Demi's husband is like 20 years older than the other men in the group.
Yes,
so that's another. And which, by the way, there's like that Halloween episode where they're all dressed up like Chippendales to make fun of Jen Affleck and her husband. And by the way, they're all really committed to the bit. Like you can tell, like they're a little nervous, but they're like, we want it to go good. And I just thought, how bizarre. Like, and this is what you can only get in a place outside of Los Angeles or New York, where like Utah, where they are fully committed. And I think we watch it and it's almost like, this is insane. And this is all done without alcohol.
Yes. Like how many, Ryan, honestly, we don't even think about that. None of these people are even drinking. Like none of them. Like I think somebody might be occasionally taking a nip off camera or something, but primarily this is all sober. And I'm like, I've never been in this much drama with that many. Except that, you know what? Actually, I take it back. The only place I've been in this much drama without drinking?
Junior high?
At church. At church. And these are church folk.
Oh, there we go. So there we go.
It's church folk. That's exactly what's happening here.
Yeah. Do you think they have to have tough conversations with each other of like, you're hitting the Dr. Pepper too hard? Like you're going crazy, like just slow down with the Dr. Pepper. I mean, their commitment, which by the way, we're going to talk about Summer House in a second, but some listener wrote in this idea, and I think it's kind of genius, is that, I've been worried about Carl Radke's Soft Bar opening, his non-alc bar. I was like, he needs to team up with the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives girls and do an activation with them, because or just move Soft Bar to Utah, move to Provo.
Yes. If he wants to make money, if he wants us to be successful, he needs to move. If he moved it to Utah and he worked with them, he would be, he'd have 3 of them in Utah in great locations, and people would be drinking and having a good time. And they'd be like, wait, what? You just come in here and drink? No, it's not soda. It's not even soda, y'all. It's not even soda. It's fizzy water mixed with bitters and whatever nonsense we're putting in there.
This isn't even a joke. I just think it's like, wow, that's a really great idea.
They got to give us a cut though. or give
Yeah,
you a cut. You came up with the idea.
yeah. I'll take anything. So they're currently filming season 3 as season 2 came out, and it
Nice.
is interesting is that I don't even think they need this, but they tried to throw in this storyline that involves Vanderpump Villa, which is a Hulu show,
Yes.
where Marciano, who was on that show, potentially had some sort of flirtatious relationship with Demi. And then now it's come out that potentially also Jesse from Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. And it's
Slept
almost
with
like
Jesse.
Slept, yeah. Well, and Sheena from Vanderpump Rules and now The Valley got involved. We were like, of course Sheena got involved. Where they said in the very last episode, we're going to see more of this. And Marciano, this guy, he keeps saying there's so much more to be revealed. And I'm like, it's brilliant marketing, but at the same time, I think it's actually true. Like, I don't think they have this kind of wherewithal to make. I don't know. This is what I question, Ronald, is that in this day and age, would you sacrifice yourself looking like a decent moralistic person for the bit or for the bag? Like, would Marciano, if none of this is true, but he's like, we're going to say all of these things that you potentially manhandled to me, you slept with a married woman that is deep in a committed relationship, allegedly, would you allow yourself to do that for the success of both shows?
When you have chosen to be a reality TV star and you want to get to the top, getting to the top is like the path up there is just not pretty. Like the nicest people are not necessarily the ones who end up at the top. But I feel like all of the questions you asked are all stuff that you could have asked 2 years ago or maybe last year when it was Scandoval and Ariana. Because at that point you say like, because I've questioned whether any of that is true. Like, is this cheating? This seems very convenient. But all of a sudden I'm watching Tom Sandoval on Traitors and like doing a pretty deep run on Traitors, you know what I mean? Or he did that Navy SEALs show. And I'm not even going to mention all of the things that Ariana did as a result of this.
Which, by the way, tonight she starts her second season as the host of Love Island USA on Peacock. That starts tonight for the next month. Tom Sandoval just got cast on House of Villains season 3, which now goes over to Peacock. So they're all doing, I don't know if I would say Ariana's definitely doing the best, but Tom Sandoval's keeping, being able to make his yearly nut off of a couple of reality shows.
He's not canceled. That's the thing. He's not canceled.
Well, no, it's, I don't think cancellation truly exists in the way that we think it does. In fact, sometimes canceling can help you. I just think you have to walk around with a scarlet letter, obviously for your own behavior. I do know Scandoval was true just from just from being around like those people, but it was weirdly, it did seem convenient. And we're built to be suspicious because we've been lied to so many times on reality TV that of course you would think that, but none of these people are good enough actors to pull off what they do, but there will always be this. It's like, did Kubrick direct the moon landing?
What's funny is I forgot who I was talking to for a second. I forget that you have more information than me. Like I'm just watching TV and you're out here hanging out with some of these guys.
No, so by the way, what a sad badge of like what a sad like honor. I'm like,
no, that's not me talking trash. But I'm only saying that to say like for me as the suspicion of thinking it's not true. I guess the reason why that started coming up is when I saw Ariana on Dancing with the Stars. I'm like, what in the world of publicity is like the booking on this? And it was one thing to see her arc go far and wide and like her star continue to rise. But when I was looking and seeing like, wait, Sandoval's getting gigs off this? So I'm like, this is like, you really like married the villain role and just said, yeah, man, like cash the checks. I'll do whatever it is. Let's go do it,
Well, and then people complain about people like Sheena and Lala being now put on to the Valley. The other, do you dip into the Valley at all?
I can't, man. How long are we gonna follow these Vanderpump kids?
It's not. I mean, for the rest of their lives and our lives. But everybody complains that they put Sheena on the Valley, and I'm like, what else do you expect her to do? She doesn't have a medical degree. Like, of course, like what? I mean, what? And she drives storyline, even though like I don't know. Sometimes it's weird because those utility players can be underappreciated. And like you said, it's a very dark road in reality TV that even if you're good for a show, you might be hated by an audience or disliked a lot. And I just do not have Neil Steele's nerves of steel like that at all.
I couldn't do it, man. Like, there's people have asked me, like, in like the work that I do, they're like, well, why don't you try to get on a reality show? I was like, because there's a level of fame that I've decided I absolutely do not want. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
if you asked me to be on Traitors, I would be on Traitors. You know what I mean? But I do not want to be on any, like, hey, let's bring a camera into your house and look at you and other podcasters. I don't want to do any of that stuff because it always feels like you're set up to fall into a role. And I really just want to be Ronald all the time. I just want to be Ronald all the time, and I don't want to pay a cost for being Ronald all the time.
Or think about, like, I was hiking the other day and I was panting and hating life and like, think about if I was famous and then somebody was just watching me behave like that, like just watching me, like the dude had buckets of sweat pouring down his face. Like, that would be like, then you see some weird paparazzi shot or somebody makes a TikTok of your appearance. It would be horrific.
Yeah, and you're just like a normal guy struggling on a hike. Like, that's you. When you work out, you get ugly. You know what I mean? Like, that's what happens. So it's like, I don't know. There's parts of it, and it's specifically not even like the love. We're not even talking about A-list celebrities. We're talking about reality stars. Yeah, which is like, it's a form of celebrity, but to me, reality stars and influencers are on the same level of celebrity to me. Where it's like, we know you. Yeah, you probably make money. Yes, you probably bought that house, but like, you're gonna have to do some stuff that I won't ever have to do in order to, make money or achieve more success or whatever.
I just thought of this. I want some kind of TV show where it's like an influencer talent show. Like, I want to give them a Shakespearean monologue and see if they can handle it. I want to see, because sometimes I feel, I'm not really impressed by influencer culture. I think I'm just too old for that, even though I pay attention to it. But sometimes I'm like, what do you really got? Like, do you got a song in you? Do you got can you dance? Can you do something that we used to think of and used to give flowers to as actual entertainment? And I'm not saying that themselves, they're not entertaining, because obviously they are, but like, I also want to merge like old school aesthetics with what they do so people can appreciate a written word or a song and really, I don't know. Anyways, I'm old man shaking the fist on top of a mountain right now.
I don't know if it's that old man, because I'm like, I watched Kai Cenat's Streamer University.
Yeah.
And I felt confused. Well, I felt confused.
By the way, he's like the biggest streamer out there, you guys, and he did like a streamer university, like a workshop, right?
Yeah, so we basically brought all these streamers into this university that was somewhere, and they basically like treated it like college. So they taught them how to be better streamers, how to and they were boosting each other's streams and all of that. And I remember I'm the only one asking the question that when you're streaming, what are you actually doing? And all it is you're basically, what's that guy Jim Carrey movie? You're Truman showing your life, essentially. So everyone's just watching you live your life. And so I'm
wondering, there's a chat that's going like just
constantly. And people are talking. But the thing that gets me is like, Ryan, like, kids are aspiring to be streamers. But I'm like, that's not aspiring to like have a talent or to do well. Like, even if you aspire to be on the radio, at some point you look at the path and you say, there are skills that I need before I can get there. In terms of streaming, I'm not seeing any actual skills that you need in order to like set it up for your life, which is, I think that's what's making me struggle with the concept of everybody being famous now and what influencer culture does, even to it perverts reality stars and vice versa. But this streaming thing, I'm like, if you pay attention to it, in a few years, like, the most famous person on the planet is just going to be somebody who was just streaming out of their house this whole time.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, like, I got turned on to like, I know I'm like way behind, but I started watching mukbangs or mukbangs where people are like force feeding themselves. And because I'm trying to eat better, so what I'll do is watch these people eat the food that I want to eat, but then I'll get disgusted because it's too much at a certain point. And
Ryan, stop doing this to yourself.
These guys have millions of followers. I mean, millions of followers where I'm like, oh my God, everybody is just sitting there watching. It's so bizarre to think about. Okay, I know we're going along here. I want to talk about Summer House because I want to get your thoughts on this season of Summer House. We have part 2 of the Summer House reunion airing tonight, Wednesday night. We just had part 1. What are some of your thoughts overall this season?
I think it was good. I am a Carl Radke stan, And I think I've never experienced such catharsis as when he dropped the mic on Lindsay about him dating the girl that was
Oh, the lemur girl.
yeah, that was somehow overlapped. And when he proved that it wasn't, to see her face when she realized that she was wrong, and you could see her face be like, well, I didn't know that. So like I feel like that, I felt that was probably a highlight for me, but I know the bigger storylines were outside of Carl and Lindsay, which was because I feel like they really pushed like Lindsay being pregnant this whole season, and that was like a main storyline, but I wasn't really interested in that as much as I was in like, what does that mean for them in the house? But they had a relatively uneventful summer except for that interaction between them. But I know what you want to talk about. You want to talk about Jesse and Lexi.
Well, no, I mean, I don't really, the Jesse and Lexi thing is played out in a lot of ways because I think it just boils down to a general dislike about the behavior I see out of Jesse. Not that Lexi is like totally perfect, because I mean, this is I think she's handling herself decently at the first part of the reunion. And I saw the second part of the reunion already, and she does a decent job. But it is interesting going into an established group of friends where in the first part of the reunion, all of these people were almost laughing at the toe thing, when it's like, well, it kind of traumatized this girl that thought she was dating this dude. And he was acting like he was on Rumspringa when she was gone, and just like, doing toes and flirting with Sierra. But also to your point about Lindsay and Carl, that moment I thought was great. I'm a Lindsay fan. And also I want Carl to do good. I think it's very interesting to watch somebody shed all of their cloaks and try to find out who they are again. And I think people have to open their minds to people like, some people don't know who they are. Some people are so uncomfortable with who they are that it takes decades to really figure it out. So I admire that bravery. But what I loved about that moment is that everybody laughed at that of Carl shutting Lindsay down. But what I also loved is that Lindsay was like, okay, and then kind of just kept going. She didn't push it where it could have been a blow up. And that's what I love, is that little explosions, and then they're able to get back on track pretty immediately. And that's, I think, why Summer House kind of exists on vibes rather than hard storyline.
I agree. I think that's why this show, I will watch this show as long as the core is there, as long as to me, as long as Kyle and Carl and now Paige and Sierra are there, I'm very happy. Actually, you can keep West and Jesse too. I think they found like a core that actually really works. And then like the Emerald, like come and go. Like I don't really care if he's there. Lexi and her friend that was in the very first episode, like Bailey. I'm not really concerned. Yeah, Bailey. I'm not concerned if they're there. But to your point about Lexi, the one thing that I don't like is that she keeps saying that Jesse was separating her from the girls, and I feel like there was two things at work there. If Jesse was doing that, which there may have been some measure of that percentage wise, the other thing is like those girls are hard to break into. Amanda, Sierra, and Paige are very close. Like it's even hard for Lindsay or Gabby or any of the other ones to be a part of that set of three.
Sometimes I find it's like hard for Amanda to even join the room. Like she's not in that bedbug room. So even Amanda will kind of run in there. And I sometimes wonder if Amanda gets nervous about her place in that twosome.
Yeah, I mean, she talks about how much she misses them when they're gone, like even to the detriment sometimes of her relationship with Kyle. But the thing that gets me is like, if you think about how close Gabby is, who was basically absent for a lot of the season, I felt like all of a sudden she shows up during this Lexi thing, and her and Lexi are like holding hands at the reunion, and they're together, and she's like speaking up for her. And I remember thinking at the moment, I was like, yeah, but that's also because Gabby's also not in tight with these other ones. So she found like this other outlier, and now they're close, which is that dynamic. It just, it makes me think that we might not see Gabby next summer. We might not see Lexi next summer.
If you look at the show like a chess game, which is so sad if you do look at it like a chess game, but I will say it's the Gabby, you're completely right. These are outliers. So it's very easy to see a world where they just let Lexi and Gabby go. And I will say, tonight's reunion is potentially going to strengthen this argument of like, yeah, there's a world in which Gabby and Lexi just are not there. Now, Lexi seems like she picked up some like kind of dime store pop culture book on therapy. So she's using these words of like, you separated or you gaslighted. And it's not to say that he didn't do those things, but the verbiage she is using seems like she listened to some kind of self-help podcast. And Jesse, his whole bit about like, I was joking, it was funny, like nothing he's done has ever been funny. So I don't know where that's always his backup, but I do find it interesting is that I don't think he intentionally pitted these women against each other, but I definitely didn't think, I think he wanted himself to be in control of both sides of that female relationship.
Yeah, and I mean, we have to think like producers too, and say like, okay, if we're crafting a season of Summer House, if you think about what Jesse brings to the table, everything that you just said, which would be terrible human qualities for someone that you want to hang out with,
Great reality star,
wonderful reality show qualities, and as a result, it's like next season, it's like if they do keep Lexi, they keep her as a pawn so that they can bring another woman in the house that Jesse also talks to.
Yes,
that creates another dust up and another like some sort of fraction of the group. You know what I mean? Like, which is like. I mean, you're right. It does exist on vibes. And if they could just adjust the vibes just a little bit every season, I mean, that's why we don't see Luke anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
well, or I was thinking about that dude, Alex, from a couple seasons ago that would just, his whole storyline was making protein. Like he just made, he had to get a lot of protein.
Yes. Oh
and like,
God,
what happened to that dude? We have so many. I mean, what about Maya from a couple seasons ago?
Maya,
what about,
yes. Like she was there for like, when they were talking about like right after George Floyd and talking about her blackness and all that, I was like, I thought for sure she was going to be a permanent fixture on the show.
Oh,
but then,
that was such an amazing conversation. Like Kyle, everybody was listening. It was really this kind of amazing conversation that Bravo sometimes is hit or miss on their discourse around, obviously racial identity. And this one was like, once again, it wasn't like hitting you over the head with it, but it was somebody's first person experience and people willing to listen. And so I thought and they weren't like all made up like the Avengers, like the Housewives are. So everybody's in like cargo shorts. And it was like one of those easy kind of conversations to like, that got me really excited. But you're right. I thought after that conversation, she was in. So I don't know what happened, but Gabby, it's almost like her job is dependent on if Lindsay comes back next summer.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, because if Lindsay's not there, I don't know who Gabby's hanging out with, like in the house, because I've seen, if you pay attention to group dynamics, you typically, even if you have a group of 7 people, there's one loner in the group who's like, yeah, I'm here and I'm at stuff, but also I will be the last one at the party. I will wander off and you won't hear from me till 3 a.m. I will come back late, like all of that, right? And part of it sometimes works like, yo, we got to invite Clive. That's my boy Clive. He's the loner of our group. We got to invite our boy Clive to the like come back to the thing. But like at some point, we're also like, do we want to hang out with this person? Like we're not really close with them. If somebody has to go, it's much easier because we're all here to say that this person shouldn't be here anymore. But I don't know, man. It's about like it's just, we're talking group dynamics and vibes here. To the Maya point, one more thing I'd say is like they had that whole conversation. She mysteriously disappears off the next season, which I don't know if that's scheduling. And then they also at the same time launched Summer House Martha's Vineyard, the all black version of Summer House, which like first of all, bring it back. Stop doing what you're doing.
I thought it was good. Like you were like, I saw the ramping up of it from the first season to the second season. And I'm like, why did we invest in 2 seasons? Like you got to give these time, you got to give them room to grow. Like, by the way, if you go back and watch Summer House now, you might get a kick out of it with like kind of the retro of like the precursor to what we now.
Circus.
But it's also not like the most gripping reality show of all time.
No,
like you have to invest in shows to get to a point where everything pops off, and it's exciting because at that point they have real relationships that actually there's something to lose.
Exactly. And I feel like, but I'm saying like that show disappears, Maya disappears, and now we're like back on like the Summer House train. And I'm wondering, especially with Lindsay potentially leaving, I'm wondering, are we reaching a Vanderpump Rules fever pitch where it's like Scandival's over, like, you know, like a lot of people have left the show. We got this other thing, The Valley. We can start offloading these people and start spinning up something new. Like what? Well, there is
a conversation about, and I think that's what Lexi and Bailey were brought on, was that like we need to lower the age range. We're trying to advertise to a certain demographic of female in a way, or even gay male, and that's what a corporation is going to do. So they're like, at a certain point, like I'm fully invested in these people. Like I don't even care. Like I always joke, like I don't even listen, I don't even care about the house. Like you could have summer building, you could have summer like tent,
summer shack. Care. I don't care.
Or I was saying like, why don't we let's do a camping episode. Let's do an episode where they go to a music festival that Kyle DJs at. Let's see some off the road Summer House episodes. But
well, I think that's Winter House for them, but they're kind of botching that too. That's gone now. Yeah.
Do you think Sierra will? I mean, Sierra, it's interesting. I've grown to appreciate Sierra based on how the men in Summer House have treated her as opposed to how she's handled herself other than that storyline. That's where I've grown to appreciate Sierra, is watching like West or Luke, or I'm trying to think of the other one, like how they've or Jesse this season. I've grown to appreciate Sierra in that sense instead of, and so that what worries me is that, oh God, you might actually hook up with Jesse. Like you're not out of the woods. I think you still might do that.
I think so too. I have a lot of empathy for Sierra because, and I watched her on Traders, and I realized that the thing that is consistent about her is that like she's slow to trust people, and when she does trust people and they act predictably in her mind, like she's very hurt by that. Like there was stuff that was happening in the trader's house when they were like, well, we think you're a traitor, and she was hurt. Like if you watch it, she was like genuinely hurt, and I'm like, no, that's valid. Like because it's wild. I mean, unless it's traitor play, there's no reason why the faithful should be assuming that it's Sierra. So like I feel like there's that empathy I have for her grows every time I see her mistreated, because I don't want to see her get mistreated by these like dusty dudes, man. Like these dudes aren't even like top quality. We're not talking about like Carl Radke, king of the house. We're talking about like Austin and Jesse. Like
I forgot about Austin.
West.
Well, you can see it. And by the way, this is a great, like, probably about how a lot of women are. You can see it harden her.
Yeah,
like you can see it harden her, and like where she talks about that kind of phenomenon this season of like, you don't think I want to run up to him and hug him and say it's going to be okay? Like I have to keep myself on guard. And I thought that was such an interesting perspective. And I thought she did great in the first part of the reunion, talking about her own family, talking about how she doesn't talk to her dad.
I'm glad they did that, because they brought a lot of context and perspective to how I feel. I was like, oh, that makes sense. Everything you just said makes sense to how you're approaching all of this.
See, and that's what I love. I love those like, oh, the context of everything. Of like, I don't find it boring to find out about somebody's, past or somebody's. I think that's actually really interesting. So where there's a lot of rumors that there's going to be a spinoff with Lindsay, Amanda, and Paige, potentially, and that doesn't mean that Summer House is going to go anywhere for them, but would you watch an all-female spinoff of Summer House, but it's in the city?
I mean, I feel like Summer House is an all-female spinoff of Summer House in a lot of ways. Because I feel like we don't like the ways in which they focus on the dudes is kind of like their interactions with the women in the show typically. So, I mean, yes, I would watch it. I actually do not hate Lindsay. I think sometimes it's funny to watch her do the same thing with different guys and say, no, this guy is the one. Like, I feel like that would be interesting to watch on a spinoff format, like with her, Paige, and Amanda. There's something about the chemistry of these three people that would be kind of interesting, but like, how much can you do in a city? Like, you're going to have to add some other people in there. Like in terms of New York, and I mean, there's plenty to do in New York, but I mean, like plot line wise.
Yeah, I know. You have to fill in those blanks.
And live there.
Yeah. Well, where there's a dollar, there's a way. So by the way, so Summer House is going to air Wednesday night or tonight, and I saw it, and there is a revelation in it. I'm excited to have you guys watch it and to hear about it. And I'm excited actually to hear what you think about it, because I thought it was, once again, it's not like the Scandival reunions, but it's like a decent reunion. There's a couple moments where you're like, it's just like these little moments that Summer House is built over 9 seasons. Finally today, you said you are not watching And Just Like That, and you said you had a very specific reason why, and I just wanted to get that reason for everybody.
Ryan, if there's no Samantha, there's no show, as far as I'm concerned.
Listen, she was texting with Carrie last season. She texted with her. We didn't,
Ryan, if there was a phone call last season too. If there's no Samantha, there's no show. I think they were trying to make fetch happen. I watched the first couple episodes of season 1, and I was like, this ain't it. I know what y'all are trying to do. This ain't it. And much of the tension that y'all have, you're trying to bring through the personality of these new characters and like the original 3. But I'm like, if you go back to the original Sex and the City, Samantha was doing a lion's share of work in terms of like bringing like the glue that's bringing it all together. You would think it would be Sarah Jessica Parker. You'd think it would be, I'm forgetting her actual name on the show. You'd think it would be Carrie, but instead, like, I feel like Samantha's doing a lot of that, especially in what we know of the show now and everything that's happened since then. Like, people love Samantha, and as soon as they said she wasn't participating, I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work. And I feel like it was proven when I watched a couple of episodes of the first season. Just like, I don't know where this is going. But again, also, I saw in the previews they're bringing back Aiden, so I'm like, so y'all trying anything.
Aiden's fully back, and there is some. This is a show that I truly think is so bad it's good. And it's to our point earlier that I was saying. I was like, is there an aspect where they potentially are trying to make the worst show ever because they're because they know we'll talk about it because it's so glaringly bad in certain ways. And by the way, everybody involved are phenomenal actors. Like these are talented people, and so. Even that, like sometimes Cynthia Nixon will say a line and I'll be like, oh, they are so lucky that she's a good actor. They are so like she's really acting like she believes this horrific line that was written for her and she's selling it. But that's the thing. It almost forces you to go meta with the show where, and even to your point about, Samantha is, unfortunately, we know why she's not on the show is because there's a huge rift between Kim Cattrall and Sarah Jessica Parker. And I think that's interesting when the audience then has a meta feeling going into a show that's already, you're supposed to suspend your disbelief that these are all very well-off ladies in New York City that have amazing apartments. And the things that are issues in their life are like hot button issues that you see on the news. And those are the issues.
Yeah. And I feel like that they're trying like you're right. They're either this is an earnest attempt that's failing, but somehow they're still giving them new seasons, or they're actually trying to be this bad. I tend to think it's the first, but I think thinking of the second scenario being in actuality is very funny to me. Like the idea that they're like trying to make the worst show that they can.
It's like the producers, like how exactly. Can you make the worst? And by the way, they're all collecting very steep paychecks, so they're doing well. There's no need to feel bad for them. Also, the other thing is like, do you get just so out of touch, not just with age, but with celebrity? Is that, it's even like somebody making a bad album that you love, where you're like, and that's what they heard, and they thought it was good, and they think potentially, like that's the other mystery is that do they think this is good? Do they think this is like this hits on every level?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I feel they have to be listening on some level because when they worked Samantha into a phone call for like one scene, it's like, oh, so you do hear what we're saying. So, which also led me to believe, I'm like, if she's in one scene, then I'm not going to be surprised if she returns to the show in season 4. Like, obviously they couldn't get it done in 3, but who knows what's going to happen with this show in the future. So they're throwing whatever they can at the wall, whether it be like you said, the hot button storylines, the very topical ways in which they're trying to make the show relevant to an audience today. But at this point, I'm like, yo, man, for the women that watched Sex in the City and it like really was revolutionary,
it changed
their lives. Yeah. Like, I'm like, they're just not the tip of the spear anymore. And I think part of that recognition would have probably made this a better show.
Which, by the way, that's an episode of Pop Culture Debate Club you need to do is Carrie versus Samantha.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's a good one. Okay, well, if anybody sees Ronald out there, force him to watch and just like that, because I think it would be a really, it's like a Saw experiment where you're like, do you want to play a game, Ronald? And we just force you to watch the last season and a half. Anything else that you're watching on TV right now that you are loving to recommend to people? As we
the only thing I would recommend right now is Everybody's Live with John Mulaney. I just binge watched it. Like I watched it from the very beginning.
Dude, I just did a segment on that show on Friday because I thought this is such a big swing, and oftentimes it doesn't work, but it doesn't work in a spectacular way. Like I was so energized by. Did you watch the finale with the boys? Him wrestling the boys.
I'm halfway through. I have not finished. I have not gotten to the boys fighting yet. But the whole reason why I was like, somebody said, I was listening to The Town and Matt Bellamy was like, hey, you might have watched on Netflix a grown man fight 3 14-year-old boys. I stopped it immediately. Like, well, I got to start Everybody's Live from the beginning. I really enjoy the show because I think in terms of what they're doing with the late night format, which has constantly been trying to reinvent it, but doesn't work. Like they're letting John Mulaney have room. Yes. With a bunch of writers and they're doing skits and all. I was sitting there watching this and I was like, SNL should be taking notes because this is a tight hour and it's working for me. I don't know if it's working for everybody, but it's working for me.
You see, that's what it is. Like where I don't think it's working for everybody. And I think that's okay. And I think John Mulaney, that's okay, is that I hope it gets a second season with Netflix because I noticed it wasn't in the top 10, but I don't think it has to be. Subcultures do not have to be top 10 shows. And I think there's a certain pride in having a show like that. And speaking of Matt Bellamy, I went to his event he had a couple weeks ago, and he spoke with John Mulaney, and it was very interesting hearing John
That's the
Mulaney speak.
episode I heard. That's the
Yeah, he was
episode I
speaking
heard.
about
Yeah.
the show and like almost talking about it like the Dada movement and surrealism and all of the rules that he grew up with comedy. That being able to know the rules so you can break the rules. And also when it came to SNL, he was like, "What would you change if you were given Lorne Michaels' spot?" And he's like, "Well, I wouldn't change a thing. I don't, like that's not even a conversation that needs to be had, but it was very interesting, Matt trying to get him to speak about it. But I've been recommending that show, but I recommend it with the caveat of like, it could completely not work for you. It's very
Yeah.
awkward and stumbly and rough around the edges.
Well, I'm binge watching and it's working for me. I am convinced that if people tuned in on the East Coast, 10 p.m. every Wednesday, you watch that before you go to bed, you'd be satisfied. Like, I don't think it's a show that you should be binge watching. I'm only binge watching because I wanted to make sure I understood the entire show before I got to this final one. I didn't want that to be the first episode that I watched. But I feel like in terms of it being a live show that is on, and especially for a limited time, not every Wednesday, and you have these celebrities that are not plugging things, like just there's so many.
Yeah, by the way, like they'll have like the
refreshing.
biggest celebrities with like a common person that has an actual like degree in
Expertise.
something like the
Yeah.
topic, and it's great because not everybody gets their moment to shine. It's not like a typical talk show like that, so it's very interesting. But I also love that it is live because there are these things that I miss in terms of streaming where you do feel like we're all watching at the same time. Like, oh, right now it's
Exactly.
Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This is the temperature in Los Angeles right now, and it goes, oh, we're alive right now. We're all potentially watching this together at the same time. I like that.
Yeah, and I think for me that's why it works. And also, he's funny. Like the fact that he had to come up with 12 monologues and like all of them are making me. I'm laughing at least once in every monologue because I don't expect to laugh through most topical monologues, but he's always getting me in some way where I'm like, okay, that was funny, John. And I feel like I'm enjoying watching that.
Well, he's so funny that's what I love, that he's so funny that he could easily do what would be considered funny to the masses on this show. And he purposely sidesteps that and goes a different route to be funny. It's almost like having ankle weights on. He's like, I know how to be funny. I'm going to be the weirdest, quirkiest version of myself that I love and see what attracts to that. So I have great hopes. Anyways, Ronald, what is up next for you? So we had the second season of Wait For It, which, by the way, as a thank you to Ronald, make sure you go and hit 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and subscribe to it. And also Pop Culture Debate Club. I think you're a part of 3 other podcasts as well. But what else is going on for you?
I'm working on some writing. I'm working on a one-man show, which typically is like the harbinger of doom when people say that. But I'm really excited about it. It's a long story that I've been wanting to tell for a while. So I'm working on that. It's called Heartbreaker, and I hope to stand that up by Valentine's Day next year. You won't find it promoted anywhere. Just keep following me on Instagram.
This will be in Chicago, right?
Yeah, no, this will be hopefully here in Washington, D.C. But the other thing is working on season 3 of Wait For It, which should come out in the fall. And I have my other like little passion project, Leaving the Theater, where I review movies as I'm walking out of the theater.
Oh, yeah.
That's my favorite little baby, man. Like I just
Wait,
saw,
what's the last one you put out?
The most recent episode, no, it's Lilo and Stitch. I did Mission Impossible last week, and this week I did Lilo and Stitch, which I think was better than the original, which I never say about these Disney live action remakes.
Whoa,
I know. I think they
wow.
fixed some things that I had issues with in the original. They fixed them, but I just saw Ballerina. That'll come out next week, and I'm going to see How to Train Your Dragon tomorrow, which I had to rewatch on Peacock to make sure I still loved it, which I still do. And I watched the preview again. I was like, I think this might be a shot for shot remake, live action remake. Cause I'm like, I didn't see anything that they changed from the preview from in the preview of the live action from the animated version. So that's what I'm excited about right now.
Damn. Well, you guys go follow this dude. He is one of my favorites. I mean, literally, I had such a good time in that last conversation. So thank you for coming back, man. I hope to talk to you many more times in my lifetime. And you guys go follow Ronald Young Jr. And hopefully I'll talk to you soon, man.
Thank you so much.